growing up being the fat kid, growing up being the shy kid. And I didn't want anybody to see me. I always wanted to hide in the shadows.
That was Andre Fluellen, 8-year NFL veteran, talking about the challenges he faced on his journey to the NFL. 1 million boys play high school football every year in America, and only about 300 players are drafted by teams in the National Football League annually. Those are some seriously long odds. On this show, we'll tell you about the amazing people that have beat the odds to make it at the highest level. Andre Fluellen was a self-described fat kid who struggled with confidence issues most of his youth. His size and raw athleticism made the game of football easy at first, but it took a supportive group of family and coaches, an incredible work ethic, and an intense desire not to fail for him to beat the odds. Fluellen grew up in a loving family with his mother, father, and older brother Charles in the small town of Cartersville, just outside of Metro Atlanta.
Cartersville to me was one of the best places ever, like a kid could ever grow up. Like seriously, it's far enough away from Atlanta where, you're not in the hustle and bustle of the city, but it's like close enough to where you can kind of be there if you need to get there. It's just great community. In terms of being a football player and an athlete, like the whole city gets behind you. I had an awesome childhood, like amazing. Couldn't have been better. Like I said, my dad, businessman. My mom was a doctor. She's an anesthesiologist.
Fluellen had this to say about his brother Charles.
We were really close, but had different interests. But we were always we never got into any arguments or fights like that.
Charles said that his father made it clear the boys would not be fighting.
We actually got along very well. And the main reason was because the one time that we actually did get in a fight, we might have gotten a few fights, but the one major one, and my dad said was like, okay, well, you got two options. He's like, you can either go to bed. He pretty much gave us a whooping for fighting each other.
Fluellen was a really big kid, the kind of big that might have given a hint of his future profession as an NFL lineman. But being that big so young definitely affected Fluellen's mindset growing up.
First grade, it was this, it was another kid. And he was a big kid too, and he was like, "Man, you're fat." And I was like, "Well, you're fat too." He was like, "No, I weigh 70 pounds." And so I remember I started crying. I went home and I told my mom, I said, "Man, this kid said I weighed 70 pounds." She was like, "No, you weigh 140 pounds." She said, "Guess what? He does too." I'll never forget that. So in the first grade, man, I was $140.
Fluellen's parents used to try and nudge him about his eating.
They would order me the kids' meal, and knowing that a kids' meal was not going to satisfy me at all, but they would still order me a kids' meal, or they would, when I would order an adult meal, they would try to say, "Hey, well, why don't you think about getting the kids' meal? I mean, you are, 6 years old." And I would say, "No, that's not going to do it," or I'll try to order two of them. Like so they would try to give me clues. But always, like I said, always loving, always, always supportive of who I was.
Fluellen's mom, Judith, had this to say.
He loved to eat. He loved snacks. He would out eat anyone. And I think he was a sneak eater too. I'm not sure about that, but I think he was probably a closet eater as well.
Fluellen definitely let his own concerns about his weight change the way he approached school and other areas of his life.
Up until third grade, I was still an excellent student. Fourth grade, I don't know what happened, but like I started realizing, how kids feel like, oh, it's cool to not, you don't want to be the smart person, the smart kid, because you want to be cool. So, I was already the big kid, and so I didn't want to be like the big nerdy kid, and so my grades started to drop. Not bad, but like instead of having straight A's, which I had before, I would have like A's and B's.
Fluellen reached grown man size as he entered middle school. And not just a regular grown man size either.
Always a big kid, man. I'm like, and even in sixth grade, man, I was fully grown, 6'2", probably 265 in the sixth grade. Fully grown, full beard.
He had a raw athleticism that showed underneath that growing body, but he focused on other sports until middle school. Fluellen got forced into football at that point. His brother said this about Fluellen's middle school obsession, a trampoline in the backyard.
When we got a trampoline, is when we started noticing that he kind of had some, unusual athletic ability. Because he still was, the chubby kid, fat. But he could do beautiful backflips. Perfect. You know what I'm
Back
saying?
to Andre for more details here.
You're a big kid and you can move a little bit because, believe it or not, so even though I was, the big kid, 250 or 60 pounds in middle school, like I could dunk a basketball. So in middle school, people still don't believe that, but I could dunk a basketball in middle school. So when you're that big and you can move like that, you're going to be good, especially in middle school. You're going to be good. So I was good. I hated playing football. Though. I hated that sport. I absolutely hated every day playing it, but I was good at it, so I had to play it. Right? It was kind of one of those things.
Despite his lack of enthusiasm, Fluellen had some success playing the game in middle school. In football, crazy Cartersville, Georgia, most big kids dreamed about wearing the purple and gold, but not Fluellen. As a near 300-pound freshman, he wasn't even planning to show up to football tryouts until Charles found him in the hallway after school.
It was football tryouts that day, and I was on my way home. I had it in my mind that I wasn't playing.
Remember, Andre wanted to come home because he was trying to sneak away from his brother who was already on the team.
So I'm on my way home, put my book bag on. I'm about to go to the bus and get home, and my brother catches me, right? And he was like, "Dude, where you going?" I was like, "I'm going home." And he was like, "Why?" I was like, "Because school's over with. Like, I'm not staying here. Like, people go home after school." He's like, "Yeah, we got football trials today." I said, "Yeah, man, all about that, but I'm not playing football." And he looked me in my eyes, and I'm bigger than my brother, but you have your parent like gives you that look sometimes, and it puts the fear of God in your heart. Like, he gave me that look, and I've never seen him look at me. We never argued or anything like that, but he gave me that look that day, and he grabbed me by my shirt and threw me against the lockers, and he said, "You're going to play football." And it was like, and I never heard, he's never treated me like that. I've never heard him talk like that. And there was not, like, at that point in time, even though I was bigger than him, I was a little kid at that point. Like, I was a small child at that point, and I said, "Yes, sir."
Once Charles got his brother onto the practice field, he quickly knew something special was coming. Early in training camp, the shoot drill was the way Cartersville defined athleticism. Charles tells it best.
I was always the first person to hit the bag. It didn't matter who I was going up against. I'm hitting the bag first, okay? Well, me and Andre were lined up. It was because they only had 4 people to shoot. I don't know what position we were in and where, but coach said hike, and it was such an obvious difference about who hit the bag first that my coach even said, "Whoa." And that was my day that I knew that my brother was like, he had, something a little bit different in him than.
Fluellen started his freshman year on JV, but got promoted to varsity and played during the team's run to winning a state title that year. Even with his success that first season, Fluellen was still plagued with self-doubt, but the coaches knew they had a gamer.
It was the first day of spring practice in my 10th grade year. And so the coach calls everybody up. He says, "Hey, guys, all right, we got a new starting defensive end. This dude he came in here. He's going to be an amazing player." And everybody's looking around like, "Oh, we got somebody transferred? Like, awesome." And so my coach says, "All right, y'all ready for him?" And everybody's like, "Man, we're like, is he going to come out like a professional wrestler? Like, out the locker?" Like, it was kind of a weird setup. And he was like, "Andre Fluellen, you're going to be the starting defensive end." I'm like, "What? Me? No." He was, and everybody wasn't really surprised. Nobody else was really surprised when he called me out. And I think that was the point that I realized that, okay, I must have been doing something right.
Throughout his football career, Fluellen always returned to the teachings of his father to drive his mindset and hard work.
Dad has always pushed me to do my best in whatever I do. He was like, if you're going to do something, you have to do your best, or don't do it. And so he always gave me that drive. Like, even though I hated football playing, I always thought about my dad's words, and I was like, okay, all right, I already don't like this sport. And here's my thought process. Like, I don't like being out here. I don't like this sport. But one thing I hate worse in this sport is I hate getting my butt whooped, right? Like that is one thing to not like something, but it's a whole different can of worms when you don't like something and you're getting absolutely your head beat in doing it. And I just kept hearing my dad's word, like, if you're gonna do it, do your best. Like, even if you don't like it, do your best.
Fluellen was influenced in this attitude by his mother as well.
There were things that I did that were out of the norm. People didn't expect me to be successful at, but I didn't want to fail at. And I really think that Andre, I guess, saw that, maybe internalized that, for better or for
I
worse.
was really close to my parents. My parents always pushed me, to be great. My mom was, she was the football fanatic mom. She used to always have the jerseys and the air horn and all that kind of stuff at the games, and it would embarrass me, all that
And
stuff.
I would make my own signs and I'd have my own decorations. And yeah, I was pretty outrageous when it came to that. I think sometimes his dad would try to sit like 2 tiers away from me because I was such a distraction in the stand.
But it was a key high school coach that helped Fluellen unleash the beast with a colorful phrase that pushed him every day.
I would say who turned me into a man in terms of football and attitude was a guy named Shane McPherson, Coach Mack. Coach Mack every day, and he used to tell me every day, and this is his words, and to say, sorry for people who hear this, but he's always asked me, when are your nuts gonna drop? When your nuts gonna drop? Every day. When your nuts gonna drop? When your nuts gonna drop? Right? And he was saying it because remember I told you, in eighth grade, they would say that I was soft. Okay. And so he was like, whenever your nuts drop, you're gonna be a heck of a player. He would say something else, but you're like, you're gonna be a heck of a player. But when your nuts gonna drop? He pushed me harder than anybody has ever pushed me. Like to the point of breaking, but like at the same time, when that breaking point happened, when I was like, man, forget you, like I got this, right? And I kind of clapped back at him, and that's when he knew. He was like, oh, he's ready now. And that's honestly, that's when I started like really playing like I knew I could play.
Fluellen started wrecking opposing offenses on a weekly basis for the Cartersville Hurricanes, and colleges noticed.
It was my junior year, and since a letter started coming, and there's a school I did not get a letter from though, and I was so upset. And I was talking to one of my friends. I was like, man, the school I really want to go to, if I want to go anywhere, I want to go to Florida State. Right, that was my goal because I watched them play, and I remember Bobby Batten. I was a defensive end. I'll never forget a conversation that Bobby Batten had. It was an interview, and they had just played. I can't remember who they played, and they got like probably 6 roughing the passer penalties. Okay, and so after the game, they interviewed Bobby and like, hey, your guys kept getting these roughing the passer penalties. Like, what are you gonna do about that? He was like, I'd rather them play on the edge of too hard than not hard enough. They'll be all right. And like that statement made me want to go to Florida State.
When Fluellen did hear from the Seminoles, it wasn't the message he was looking for.
My senior year, we went 4-6, so we didn't really have that many big guys. So I had to play guard and defensive tackle. So I never came off the field. And so I guess they saw some of my film that my coach put together of me playing both ways, and they saw that I wasn't 6'5", right? And they saw that I wasn't 310 pounds. So they immediately said, well, he can move. We'll immediately try him at center. And so that was my first offer. So I actually wasn't going to go. I mean, I was definitely not going to go to Florida State to play offensive line. And
But Fluellen didn't give up. He knew where he wanted to be.
I sent my film directly to the defensive line coach, Odell Higgins. And so he calls me the next day. He says, I don't know what these people are talking about, you playing offensive line, but you come down here, you're going to be my defensive tackle. I've seen you play. I see your explosiveness. Like, I want you here. So don't even think that you're going to be playing offensive line. Like, you'll be playing defensive tackle here. And
that was enough to convince Fluellen to sign with the Noles. Right after graduating high school in May 2003, he reported early to Tallahassee.
I was down at Florida State taking summer school classes. And so it was a tough transition because I was so used to, remember again, I'm an introvert, I'm a loner, like that's who I am. So I had to create a whole new set of friends, a whole new set of people. And then the rookies, the freshmen who came in there, who were supposed to come in there with me, they weren't even there yet. So I was legitimately on my own, doing my own thing. working out on my own. And so it was a hard transition at first. I'll never forget. I didn't know how to get to the field. The field was locked up for the summer, so there was a barbed wire fence. So I used to get 5 towels, and I used to wrap them over the barbed wire fence, and then I would climb the fence to the practice field at the stadium to go run gassers and do my field, my drill work and stuff like that, because I was so scared of sucking. Like I was so scared of being terrible. So I used to take that risk. I would legitimately, like, I used to cut myself every now and then, hop in the barbed wire fence to go run sprints and stuff on the field.
When the rest of the team showed up later in the summer, Fluellen had a rude awakening.
I tell those people all the time, the transition between high school and college is way harder than the transition between college and the NFL. Like the speed, I never saw guys bigger than me, faster than me. Like I never saw that, playing in high school. And so now at Florida State, everybody was the biggest, fastest. Everybody was 4 or 5 stars. Like, I mean, I came in with a guy, Ernie Sims. Like, when I first saw Ernie Sims on my recruiting trip, I thought he was like already in the NFL or a senior, and has already and just came back just to kind of host the guys around. Like, I didn't know he was a freshman along with me. Like, and so when I saw, I was like, people out here really exist like this, and I couldn't believe it. And so yeah, man, that first year it was extremely difficult, especially playing defensive line. Like, you're playing against all offensive linemen who were, scally 320, 330 pounds. You never saw it in high school, or if you did, it was every now and then. So it was a hard transition at first.
But a familiar sensation kept pushing Fluellen to work harder.
Still at this point in time, didn't like the game of football. Like, I didn't like playing. So my only motivation was to not suck. Like seriously, that was my motivation. Like, I can't be terrible. Now I'm actually playing, and I'm actually in the game, and people on TV are actually watching me, and my family is watching me. I was like, okay, look, I may not like it, but hey, I gotta at least be good enough to not be bad. Like that was my motivation. And so anyway, so I get into the rotation, and I'm not really. Still, I'm not even thinking about playing on the next level. Like, I'm just thinking about, like, how I can not screw it up so we can still win. So that was it.
And a couple of unfortunate incidents by his Seminole teammates opened the door for Fluellen. That was all he needed.
So going into that year, I wasn't, going to be the starter, right? Going into my sophomore year. But 2 guys got kicked out of school. So 3 defensive tackles who probably would have started in front of me got kicked out of school. So I was forced into that starting position. So when that happened, my mindset totally changed. And every day, I said, you know what? I'm gonna train with the hardest working dude on the team. And the hardest working dude on the team at that point in time was Cameron Wembley. So me and Cameron trained every single day. Everything he did, I did. And that's the moment where I would say I really kind of made that jump.
After a strong sophomore campaign, a call from his Cartersville High coach gets Fluellen thinking about the NFL as a reality.
High school head coach calls me going absolutely nuts. Like, he's freaking out. He was like, Flu, have you heard? Have you heard? I'm like, what? Have heard what? He was like, look, he was like, I'm gonna send you something. I'm sending you something on your email. So, and the whole coaching staff was on the phone. They were on the conference line. They're like, dude, you got to see this. So they sent me an email, and they said, mock draft for this year's draft, and number 16 pick, they had my picture. And so they were like, dude, you can really do this. I hope you understand this. You can really do this.
And an encounter with a famous NFL agent in a Miami hotel sealed the thought for Fluellen.
And so there was some guy with a trench coat and glasses that walked up to my parents. We were at the team hotel or whatever. And he walked up. He came behind some bushes at the team hotel, and he came and talked to my parents. And so I was like, "Who's this shady looking dude that's coming talking to my parents?" And lo and behold, it was Drew Rosenhaus.
After coming close to leaving for the NFL following his junior year, Fluellen decided to return and finish with a final season at Florida State. The draft analyst said he would go between the 2nd and 4th rounds.
Draft day for me was, and I wish I could say it was like super exciting. Okay, like and this is why again it goes back to how I am as an individual. Like I never thought I deserved it. And that was my thing. So when I saw guys get drafted and like, their family was crying and like they were crying because they've been through some messed up childhoods, like I never really let myself be that excited because I always thought about just, man, the guys who I played with at Florida State who when they went home, like there was really no home. Like there was nobody to go back to. Like I felt like, man, they deserve this spot. Like I don't really deserve to be excited. And so my family was way more excited than I was. But I was just more like, okay, here's the next step, man. I'm just doing this for the people who didn't have the opportunity to do it. That was always my mindset. Like
The Detroit Lions selected Fluellen in the third round of the 2008 draft. He reported to training camp, but he was still being held back by his own fear and self-doubt.
hardest thing I had to go through was like seriously, I had to overcome myself, my own mindset, my own negative thoughts, my own lack of like me deserving it. Like I never let myself be great because I didn't think I deserved to be great. Because I go back to growing up being the fat kid, growing up being the shy kid, and I didn't want anybody to see me. I always wanted to hide in the shadows. Uh, and because of growing up like that, that affected me because even when I played sports, like I couldn't stand when my parents would come to games. I know that sounds crazy, but I just never wanted to be seen, especially by people that loved me. Like people that didn't know me, I didn't really care. But I just never wanted to be seen because I don't know. I just feel like I just never deserved it.
Two key people with the Lions helped Fluellen reach his potential and make it 8 years in the NFL.
First one was Gunther Cunningham. So Gunther Cunningham was a defensive coordinator for the Lions. My second, third, I think maybe fourth year. He said, "Your issue is from your neck up." He said, "You don't believe in yourself," and he's like, "Until you do, you'll bounce around this league and you'll never be a good player." And he walked off. Yeah, my sixth year, when I was playing with Indomitian Sue, he taught me his mental processes for the game. He's like, "Man, when I'm making all these plays, I've made all these plays in my head thousands of times before I step in this field." So when he told me about that and I started looking into it, remember my own problem was my mind, right? And he taught me how to coach my mind. That's when I started enjoying the game. That's when everything started changing in my life.
While Cunningham and Sue helped Fluellen be successful on the field, it was his wife's support off the field that allowed him to last 8 years in the NFL. The two met in college at FSU, where Kiana was a track athlete. She went on to become Dr. Q.
Man, my wife, like I said, she was a physical therapist, and she taught me some stretches and things to do to help my physical game. And if I had a never been with her, or she had never taught me these things, man, I would not have made it and had the career that I had in the NFL. So
Dr. Q gave Fluellen his most cherished gifts as well, two young daughters that inspire and excite him every day. Now we reach the end of this show. We asked Fluellen to look back on his life and career. We wanted him to talk about the key to beating the long odds to make it to the NFL.
I would say motivation comes in many forms. Okay. Like for me, as crazy as it sounds, the motivation to not suck got me there, honestly. And so, whatever motivation that you need, like, don't, I would say, don't shy away, or people don't need to shy away from whatever motivation comes to them. And I think that's what did it for me. Like, again, I was a fat kid that liked to eat pizza and play video games. But when I got forced into the position where like I could either look terrible, like I already didn't like how I looked anyway. So I would say that negative motivation, being put in those positions, being forced in those positions by my brother, and things like that, like by the coaching staff. When the guys got kicked out of Florida State, like being forced in those positions and being able to just harness whatever motivation comes. Like that's how I beat the odds. It was, like and beating those meant like beating my own mind. But honestly, it was just motivation comes in many forms. You never know what's really going to motivate you. And I would say that's the only reason I beat those odds.
That's our story of Andre Fluellen, 8-year NFL veteran and now co-founder of the athlete and business executive group Beyond the Game Network. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Beat the Odds. If you did, please rate and comment on our show, and please subscribe to our podcast. You don't want to miss our next amazing episode.